you to take a nice deep breath, and then I'm going to pop myself in the back now, and we're good to.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is Ahmad Mubarak, and I'm Senior Solutions Engineer here at Shape Security, which is now part of F5. Today, I will be talking to you about the evolution of application security and how Shape can take actually this to the next level. I will be specifically addressing a specific type or a class of attacks that Shape has been concerned about since long time, which is application abuse and fraud. Applications abuse is one of the most difficult attacks that we are seeing because there is no real distinction from an application point of view between a legitimate user with a username and password as to a criminal doing the same or the very same thing with a stolen username and password. And as an application, it must accept anonymous requests, and this is how attackers abusing what we call it the inherent functionality of your applications or web and mobile applications to commit fraud. A great example of this is credential stuffing, where attackers are doing this at a very massive scales using thousands and millions of stolen credentials from the dark web, and your application is still servicing those login requests as it should be because it doesn't know actually the attackers are abusing that functionality. And once attacker figures out which accounts they can access, they can resell those accounts on the dark web, or they can take those accounts and commit fraud with it. Attackers are getting, from what we are seeing, attackers are becoming extremely smart at bypassing the traditional security controls that we all have in place, especially when they are using automation tools. This graph here is from one of our recent integrations with a new customer, and it is fairly uncommon. It's not uncommon to see this traffic pattern during the onboarding process. So this is all the login transactions happening over the course of few days. Here, what was happening with this customer is that they have been battling for some time with an application abuse problem that was hitting their login pages. They knew they should see the green diagonal pattern of legitimate usage, but their own monitoring tools did not reflect that. Equally, things like marketing campaigns had no noticeable effect on the login traffic. But once Shape went inline, we were able to identify not only the legitimate green or legitimate traffic pattern that you see here in green, but also good automated tooling such as user experience monitoring tools, and then significant levels of attacks coming from specifically 5 attackers. So fundamentally, 94, imagine this number, 94% of requests logging into their websites were automated. And here I think you can see why actually this attack was extremely difficult to remediate using existing technologies, because these guys are becoming really experienced in distributing their attacks among enough botnets, so these controls become quickly irrelevant. They are also putting a lot or a huge effort to make sure that their attacks are well crafted to circumvent IP rate limits, reputations, and even geo-blocking. So look at this case here, the same attack I was talking about. The attackers here came from almost 600,000 IP addresses and from 10,000 different source networks, pretending to be 95,000 browser environment, which means they are trying to avoid, or they are very good in avoiding to show a single signal by which they could be mitigated. Now, some organizations started to be more intelligent in identifying these attacks. Then we find the next step or level of evolution and how attackers are beginning to look like generic human users. So attackers might use a headless browser along with tools or free tools like Puppeteer to encode things like key presses and mouse movement interactions into their request to bypass a lot of more sophisticated controls. For example, here in this online form, we can see that the interaction with this online form is not quite organic because the attacker was always clicking at the top left grid coordinate. Also, the key presses always happen in very organized fashion and very fast. And that said, or at this point of my conversation with customers, usually the topic of CAPTCHA normally comes up. So while everyone recognize this is a fairly terrible experience, user experience, however, some of my customers, they are confident enough that CAPTCHA is doing a good job in identifying automation. But the unfortunate reality is that it's quite cheap and easy to bypass these CAPTCHAs using services on the public web, things like Death to CAPTCHA or Buy CAPTCHA. And it's easy for attackers to scale their attacks using those services because it just costs them, for example, $1.39 for 1,000 text-based captchas, or maybe $2.99 for Google reCAPTCHA version 2 and even version 3. Now, what's actually happening on the back end is that death by CAPTCHA is proxying the CAPTCHA request to a really human working in a low-wage environment who completes the CAPTCHA request and returns the response back. Then we find the next level of evolution, or another example of evolution, is how attackers begin to be very good in emulating not generic human only, but also specific human behaviors and even specific human users. A great example of this is the Genesis Marketplace, where you can buy a stolen digital identity that the malware has captured. So here, in this particular example, you can see that victim has logged into 114 known websites, and the malware has collected all of the username and passwords and even the entire digital identities, which is actually the cookies, the font, the browser, the fonts that being using, even the hardware specification or the PC specifications itself. In this case, what happens is that I buy the identity, I import the username and password as well as all the parameters into a version of Chromium and look just like that returning user and will have instance access to all of those accounts. On the same plane of evolution, what we are seeing is that attackers who have access to higher quality data, let's say freshly fished credentials or stolen PII, and instead of using botnets, they might use actual human labor to bypass those fraud controls. They might choose to log in into those accounts manually rather than using a botnet and risk giving themselves away. So at the highest level of application attack is this, or is these attackers who are using real human interaction that's going to bypass pretty much any bot mitigation control in place. All right, so what we find with our customers, they tend to try to stop fraud using different rules. They might have rules on their WAF designed to stop botnets. Things like if I see a lots of login attempts from a particular IP range, just to block that set of transactions and maybe block that IP range or that specific geography. Equally, there are fraud rules that we know about, and it is based, or it's scoring based. So if the user is using an incognito mode, or if they are committing a high number of transactions on a specific user account, then block that transaction under those fraud controls or fraud rules. And finally, there are identity rules, which are often used to identify good returning users, but they are limited in scope. So if you see a user or a good returning user, maybe only let that user stay logged into their account for an hour or as long as the browser tab is open. We also find customers tend to extend mobile sessions because of the fact most people use only one mobile device to log in into their accounts. However, what we know about fraudsters is that they are very good and extremely smart at probing for the gaps in our control. So they know that if they use a wide enough botnets or enough IP space, or even if they don't give away the parameters that we have seen under our fraud rules, and collect maybe enough digital identities from Genesis Marketplace, then they can continue to commit their fraud and bypass those fraud controls. Now, from the shape perspective, once we are in line and mitigating, what we deliver is a clean pipeline of human transactions as an outcome of our leading bot mitigation engine. The remaining level of automation transactions tend to be very low, often less than 1%. And these are just those attackers who continue to probing for weaknesses that Shape stays on top of. So once we have that clean subset of a human transaction, I can start and inspect those transactions for more sophisticated forms of a human fraud and mitigate that without relying on the rigid rules of WAF, fraud, and identity that we have just seen. Okay, so a great example of this, it is how we use a human comprehensible indicators to identify fraudulent interactions and fraudulent users. These are things like when attackers are using certain operations on the keyboard or accessing lots of different accounts from single device, or maybe using copy and paste operations, because legitimate users are usually use the auto-filling or Apple keychain features that are embedded in the browser, or maybe typing it. It's fairly uncommon to see all of the users are copying and pasting their usernames and passwords. These are just sample indicators that we use and easy for us as humans to understand. But there are many, many more signals indicators that we use as well, which is irrelevant maybe for the context of this conversation. For example, fraudsters tend to use a lot more function keys on their keyboard than legitimate users. In fact, from our investigation, we know that fraudsters tend to use function keys around 49% of the time, whereas legitimate users tend to use these unusual keys a lot less, even less than 1% of the time. You probably, maybe at this point of time, you might be thinking that, okay, this would really give us some high false positive rate if we use this rule. And you are absolutely right. But what we do as Shape, we don't use these rules in isolation. We correlate them together, or we correlate hundreds and hundreds of those signals into our machine learning and AI engine in order to come up with an accurate assessment. Fraudsters also tend to rely on these keyboard operations because they are interacting with application outside the browser environment. Usually they tend to copy and paste credentials from a text file, okay, or they need to alt tab to that text file to interact with those stolen PII. On the same note, we see that fraudsters are often using unusual parameters of the screen size or the window size, the browser window size. Why? Because they need to have that text file open beside the browser to keep copying and pasting those stolen PII all the time. So we see these unusual utilizations of screen that can help us identify fraudulent interactions. In fact, 28% of fraudulent or fraudsters will have these unusual identifiers, whereas less than 1% of real users will have those unusual screen utilization signals. Okay, so going back to those security controls, fraud, and identity rules that I've just discussed, or we have it implemented in our organization, Shape instead always attempt to answer three fundamental questions for each and every web transaction. The first one is, are you human? We need to verify accurately or to accurately determine the difference between an automated attack or botnet or bot and a real user who is coming in from their own device. Equally, we need actually to look at the intent of the user. Is this a user who's legitimately trying to check the balance and add a payee? Or is this a fraudster who's committing these sets of transactions at scale in order to defraud their victim? And finally, are you who you say you are? Are you using your own identity? And this actually has multiple perspectives. Number one, we need to spot those fraudsters who are using stolen identity. Secondly, you want to make sure that legitimate users like myself and yourself are more easily able to access those applications. So if you have a mechanism to accurately identify a good returning user, you can let that user stay logged on for days or even weeks. And they are much more likely to generate more revenue by returning to your application because they can transact a lot more easily. Equally, we can make sure that we can remove those other friction-inducing elements like CAPTCHA because we know that they don't do a great job in stopping these application attacks. So to sum up the session, you know that attackers are driven by their own ROI. The reason evolution parameters even existed is because attackers were extracting values from their victims. So they have their own imperative to evolve and become more and more sophisticated. Also, we know that attackers are extremely good in looking for gaps in your security, fraud, and identity tools, and even in our processes. They probe for those gaps in order to continue to commit fraud. Finally, and importantly, for me as a web user, as we are or as we all are nowadays due to the current circumstances, security and fraud controls do not need to introduce a friction for legitimate users. So you can safely extend sessions if you have these controls in place. You can remove these friction and inducing elements like CAPTCHA because you can very accurately identify attacks, fraud, and legitimate users. With that, I would like to thank you very much for your time today. And feel free, if you have any questions, just to email me at a.mubarak@f5.com. Now I will hand this over to my colleague Prashant, who will take you through another very interesting journey when it comes to Nginx. Thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Prashant. I'm absolutely glad to talk about Nginx solutions in today's session, where Manai and F5 Networks are hosting the sessions together. So when it comes to Nginx, I mean, most of you already probably know that what is Nginx, but I just want to throw some facts at you. Today, there are more than 450 million websites or the APIs which run on or behind the Nginx solution. Roughly, this stands for 1/3 of the internet. So that's quite a big number. And that also means that we know a lot about the applications and the APIs. But the question here is that what is Nginx? It's not something which is new, which is just off the block. Nginx has been in the market for almost 16, 17 years. When we started as a web server. And the problem which we were solving was to handle thousands of connections with least number of CPUs in the memory. We basically solved the 10,000 connection problems back then. Now, when it comes to Nginx, it's a simple software, hardly 3 MBs in size, and it's completely agnostic to where customer wants to run. So 16, 17 years back when we started, everybody probably ran Nginx on a bare metal server. That means no virtualization, no containers. It's just plain piece of metal where we have operating system running on it, and then Nginx. And with that, we used to deliver web server use case. But of course, things have evolved. The virtual machines become popular. Then we have the containers. And with all these technologies over a period of last so many years, Nginx has evolved absolutely at that faster pace. So point being, when it comes to Nginx, it's a software which can run still on a bare metal if you wanted to. If you want to run it in a virtual machine, doesn't matter where your virtual machine is residing. It could be in the public cloud, it could be in your private data center, it could be any of the hypervisor which you're using in your environment. We support most of the popular hypervisors. That means you can run Nginx software in any of these environments. Of late, containers have really taken the center stage in terms of digital transformation. More and more customers adopting containers and hence microservices. And this is something which has really shot up the popularity of Nginx like anything. Nginx can deliver so many things, which makes the usage of Nginx in the containerized environment extremely popular. So the question is what we can do today. Web server is quite evident, and that's still something which we do. In fact, if you check on the independent tracking websites, we own almost 37% market share when it comes to web servers. That's more than probably any of the other popular web servers. But that's not that. When it comes to Nginx, the other use case for us is the API gateway. If I say that API gateway from Nginx is the de facto standard when it comes to API gateway on the internet, that would not be an understatement. So you might see Nginx API gateway as Nginx API gateway labeled, or you might see some other solution which is still using Nginx API gateway under the hood. It's just white label. But when it comes to API gateway, it is Nginx. Caching. Caching is another popular use case for Nginx. That means we can cache the content on Nginx to ensure that user have a better experience. And at the same time, we do not have to request that repetitive static content from the backend applications. And at this point, I would, in fact, would like to combine things like streaming media use case with the content cache. So rather than talking about how great it is and the features, I probably would throw one example at you. I'm sure everybody probably is watching more of Netflix in recent months after the COVID. And you would be glad to know that Nginx is the core of the Netflix caching and CDN platform. So that's the maturity of the caching and CDN capabilities of the solution. So it's just a matter of what you want to achieve from the solution. Once you know that, it's quite easy to get that configured on Nginx solution. Security controls is all about ensuring that wherever the customers are publishing the applications, they are secure. Today, there are multiple insertion points. You could be saying that I still want to have a WAF which is sitting in front of all the applications, and that's where my WAF will be sitting for some time. Or you might say, you know what, I'm adopting DevOps. I'm adopting the principles of DevOps, and that means I'm decoupling my data plane. So I don't want one WAF which handles everything or one firewall which handles everything. I'm saying decouple. Let's have a dedicated WAF for each and every application or set of application. If that's what you need, we have exactly same thing available, and we will see more details about in a bit. Kubernetes Ingress Controller is another use case. So for those who might not be aware about the containerized application, to get some external request into the containerized environment, you need a solution. You need a piece of puzzle which will take the external request into the services in the Kubernetes cluster. And that piece is called Kubernetes Ingress Controller. So it's kind of ADC for microservices. It does things like load balancing, reverse proxying, WAF functionalities, caching, and whatnot. And that's, again, one of the most popular use case for Nginx. In fact, if you go to Docker Hub, for example, and try to find out the most popular as well as the most downloaded Ingress controller, you will see Nginx, one of them. The streaming media is another thing. I talked about Netflix. So it's just not for the caching, but we can also act as a streaming server. That means we can optimize video on demand as well as live stream to ensure that users have the best experience. Again, we have delivered, for example, FIFA World Cups using this technology, and it's one of the most well-known technology when it comes to streaming media or the content caching. The reason I'm able to even talk about Netflix or FIFA World Cup, because this is well documented on our website. You can go and check about it. So we don't need any NDAs here. And last but not the least, load balancer. So of course, we can act as a load balancer. We are plainly a software load balancer. That means we can, again, sit on a bare metal server. We can sit on a virtual machine. We can sit in a container. So you can say that I want to load balance within the containerized environment. We can do that with the Nginx Plus solution. So quite powerful. So we have had customers who were asking us that, see, Nginx is doing a lot of stuff, but how you can bring all these things in one place from the configuration standpoint as well as the analytics standpoint? And for that, our answer is the Nginx controller. So Nginx controller is our management/control plane, which connects to the Nginx Plus instances, delivering different use cases, which we have seen. And it ensures that you do not have to go to the individual Nginx Plus instances for the configuration or the analytics. It has nice and beautiful GUI. It gives some meaningful analytics for operations as well as business reasons as well. On the right-hand side, you see F5 portfolio, where we have quite a few advanced capabilities in terms of DOS, DDoS mitigation, SSL chaining, and quite a few other cloud services. The whole idea here is that when we combine F5 solutions and the Nginx solutions, we are ensuring that the applications which customers have are getting delivered to your customers at right speed and with the right security postures. And that's the value which you're bringing as a framework. And when we do this, we are also able to simplify our architecture. If not for Nginx and F5, usually this would take 10, 15 different technologies vendors to achieve this architecture. But with Nginx and F5, we are able to reduce this to 2 or 3, hence simplifying your architecture and at the same time cutting your cost greatly. And this gives you much better TCO. So I touched upon Nginx controller a bit, and I'll give you more details now. So what is Nginx controller? It's a centralized control plane. Where you log in, you will see all of your Nginx instances in one place. Now, this Nginx Plus instances could be deployed in your on-premise data center. It could be deployed in the cloud. It could be anywhere on planet Earth. It doesn't matter. What that means is that it's truly a multi-cloud solution. For example, a customer might be moving certain applications to AWS, certain applications to Azure. Some applications might be staying on-premise because of the data governance. Now, if you need a solution which can deliver consistent security policies for you, consistent load balancing policies for you, consistent user experience, as well as the consistent API experiences, then Nginx controller is the answer. You log into the Nginx controller and you have control over all of your applications and APIs running anywhere or in any cloud as part of your infrastructure. So what else what are the other things Nginx controller can do? Yes, I talked about, for example, the load balancing functionality. I talked about the API gateway functionality. But in addition to that, it has capabilities for security. What we have coming very soon is the integration with the ingress controller use case. That means you would have direct visibility from your containerized applications as well into the one centralized controller. In addition to that, it also has full-fledged API management solution. And if you think about this, that API management of API gateways, the ADC functionalities, the security policies, as well as integration with the containerized applications in terms of analytics and the data plane, I cannot think of any other solution, any other platform today which can offer this. So that's pretty powerful, and it solves a lot of problems for our customers. All right. So with that, I'll jump into one specific use case because the security is one of the theme for today's sessions, and that is the Nginx App Protect. What is Nginx App Protect? Nginx App Protect is a WAF, is a new age WAF, which has the same core F5 WAF engine, which is trusted for so many years. Our customers, you have been using it for so many years. It's trusted. It works very well. It has been doing a wonderful job. We had a lot of customers asking us that when you are going to have the F5 core WAF engine available for Nginx Plus instances, which are running all over my infrastructure. I'm using Nginx Plus as the API gateway. I'm using it as a load balancer. I'm using it as a web server. So I need to ensure that I'm able to add security to this data plane insertion points as well. And that's what we got with the Nginx App Protect. So what are the highlights? First of all, this is meant for the new age modern applications. Why I say that? Because this is something which is lightweight. It is hardly 25 MBs in size when we add on top of the Nginx Plus. That means you can spin Nginx App Protect WAF quite fast. If you can spin it down quite fast, if you need to run a new instance of it, it happens in seconds rather than minutes. So it's extremely agile, and that's basically what every customer is looking for. We do not want elephant and ant to walk together. So here, by ant, I mean your microservices. By elephant, I mean it could be a traditional big WAFs, or the firewalls, which are not aligning very well in terms of speed in the operational practices which customers are trying to implement in the form of DevOps. So here, it is extremely lightweight. It works really well with your microservices. It works very well with your traditional application. You might say that, okay, I don't want to use it for my microservices, or in fact, I want to use it for microservices as well as my some traditional applications. This is something I can very well achieve with the Nginx App Protect. Among other things, it has a strong API, declarative API. That means it's extremely easy to port F5 WAF policies into your CI/CD tooling. All right. So when it comes to how I can use this WAF, this is one of the architecture I can share. So yes, you can use it on a traditional virtual machine or bare metal, where you configure it to protect your applications. You can run it on top of ingress controllers, and this is the Kubernetes environment I'm talking about. You can run for each and every pod you're running in your containerized application, or for each and every service in your microservices environment. So as you can see, it's extremely flexible. There are multiple insertion points where you can leverage this WAF and ensure that when you transform your infrastructure and applications, you also transform the security along with it. And this is what we call, at the same time, shifting left security. That means you start or you apply policies at the early stage of your application inception rather than afterthought. One last thing, from the use case standpoint, I talked about the API. APIs have become the heart of today's digital transformation. Everybody is talking about API. There are external APIs and internal APIs. Examples could be when you, for example, step out to go to a nice restaurant and you want to book an Uber. It's using an API. And Uber itself is using Google API because they're trying to find your location. So APIs are everywhere around us today. And when we talk about our customers, we have seen that they have been having many APIs, but probably not managing them in one single place. So with the Nginx controller, which we just saw, you also have this use case available to you. That means you can have one place to manage all of your internal and external APIs in one centralized solution. It's a quite rich subject, and probably if this is something which is appealing to you, reach out to us and we will share more details. So at the end of the what's really happening, we are helping our customers in their modernization journey. So when we talk about applications, there could be legacy applications, there could be modern applications. In terms of the complexity, it could be a very simple website or it could be something very complex. In terms of the stages, so you might have, let's say, only monolithic applications to start with of different complexity. You might then move to something called hybrid. That means you are starting to have REST-based services. You're also leveraging cloud. You're also leveraging multiple clouds, in fact. And then you have other stage, which is usually the final stage, where you only have microservices and nothing else. We can help with Nginx solution in each stage. So if we talk about this stage, it could be, for example, a software load balancer in a WAF, which fronts your monolithic application and delivers a great experience. Then it could be the second stage. Here we are talking about scaling your applications across different environments. And here, again, we can act as the API gateway, an API security solution for your APIs. The last stage is microservices. Here, we are saying that customers are having only microservices, and we want to ensure that when microservices are talking with each other or somebody's trying to talk to the microservices, everything is sound and secured. And this is where we introduce our service mesh solution, which we call Nginx Mesh. And what it delivers is a simple security mechanisms to ensure that your east-west traffic, as well as north-south traffic, is completely secure. At the end of the day, we ensure that you have a great experience in terms of delivering different services and apps you have to your customers. And we ensure that it's extremely safe when that happens. On that note, I would take you to a very quick tour of the Nginx controller and how the analytics look like. So this is the Nginx controller. What you see over here, this is the home screen when you log in. And if you go to, for example, the infrastructure and the instances, here you are able to see all the Nginx Plus instances which are deployed in different parts of your infrastructure. So when I say your infrastructure, it could be public cloud, it could be private cloud. When you click on that, you get rich analytics about this instance. And there is a lot of information about the certificates, what kind of applications and APIs you're running, and so on and on. But this is the information about the instance. What about your applications? So if I talk about your applications and APIs, this is where we have the rich analytics for them. So I click on that, and you will see some reports over here. So here you're able to see how is your application doing. Are there any 400 or 500 errors? What's the volume of traffic? If somebody comes and says, my application is slow, can you please tell me why it's happening? Or I think that it's probably because of your solution. Then you can easily come to the latency metrics and see that where you are having the latencies. You're seeing the total latency. That means latency between your users, your consumers, and the application or the API endpoints. You also see the client side, which means between the users and the Nginx Plus. And you see as well as the upstream network latency that's between the Nginx Plus and your backend. If this latency is increasing, which is the upstream, that means most probably there is something wrong with the API or the application server or something in between, but not the solution itself. You can also break out this information based on many different filters. So that could be, for example, HTTP URI. And this gives you breakout based on different URIs which your API or your application has. So if somebody says that most of things are fine, but only one specific API endpoint is not working well, you will see that over here. So I think in the interest of time, I have to stop here. So I would like to again thank you, all of you, very much for attending today's sessions. Don't go anywhere. We do have a quiz lined up and as well as nice goodies to give away. Thank you so much.
Sorry, I'm muted here.
I don't know how long I took.
You were 19 minutes.
Yeah, so I'm competing with
And
Ahmad.
me, how long?
You were 20 minutes.
Oh, seriously.
Yeah.
I try to minimize it as much as possible, but maybe
No
because
worries.
I'm honestly not familiar with the platform, the way how I was moving the slides.
Yeah, no. I think it is what it is. Tushar, welcome back.
Hi, Alex. Hi, everyone.
I just wanted to check something with you, Prashant. During your slides, were you clicking through during the little demo? It looked like it was stuck on the front screen, or did you actually go through a few analytics?
I went through all my so yeah. I mean, I was playing my slides and it was changing. So I don't know if it was happening.
Not the slides during the demo. Were you clicking through anything? Because I could see your mouse move. I don't know. Ahmed, did you see changes on his screen, or was it on
No, I think on the demo it was on the landing page always.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how is that?
So Prashant, if I can ask you, just click through because I could hear you clicking. So I'll try my best to match to see if we can edit that and just match that up. But if we're still recording right now, so if you can just start at the starting point of your demo and just click through, so we don't have to necessarily, unless you want to quickly redo just the demo section.
I can redo that. Why not?
Okay,
Alex, I'll prefer redoing it because if there is a mismatch in the audio and the video, it'll look very weird.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to drop everybody else out and let's quickly redo that.
Okay. Before we do that, do you want to try once to see that it works? That, Prashant, if you can just try a line or two and just try, doing the demo.
So should I start now, right away?
Yeah, go ahead. We are not going to be the final recording. We're just doing a quick test.
All right. So again, this is demo time. I hope you can still see my screen. So this is the landing page, and I want to quickly show you that how you have the analytics for all of your Nginx Plus instances in one place, which was not a possibility before. So what you see right now is the list of all the Nginx Plus instances, which Nginx controller is managing at this point. If I click on any of them, you'll see.
Prashant, sorry, just to stop you there. That looks perfect. We just wanted to see that you can click through. So I'd like you just to start again. Sorry, I just wanted to see if it clicks through and it moves, which is.
I think
perfect. So if you can just start again, give me a second. Tell me when you're ready.
Give me a second, please. I'm just rearranging the window.
Okay, not a problem.
Okay, I'm ready. Yes.
Okay, now I only see your desktop background right now.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay.
So just
because I don't want to look away from the camera. That's why. Okay, I need to share my other screen.
Yeah. So just stop sharing screen and share it again for me, please.
I'll do that. Stop screen. Share screen. Share screen. What happened? Okay, coming. No. Okay, if you can see, I'm ready.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Take a deep breath, and I'm going to remove myself now, and you can proceed. Thank you.
Okay, so now a demo time. So this is the landing page of Nginx controller. What you're seeing is all the amount of traffic which is passing through all the Nginx Plus instances in your application framework infrastructure. So usually there was never a way to see all the Nginx Plus instances in one place and see the analytics for them. But now with the controller, you can do that. So I'll go to my infrastructure, and here you'll see the list of all the Nginx Plus instances doing different jobs like load balancing, the security WAF policies, the API gateway, and the other use cases in one place. Now, when you do that, it also tells you about the health of that specific Nginx Plus instance and some other relevant information. If you click on any of the instance, it will give you more information about the traffic which is passing through this instance, how is the CPU and memory are used, and what are the configurations which are done on this specific Nginx Plus instance. We do have more graphs available, which will tell you more details about this Nginx Plus instance. But this is mainly about the Nginx Plus instance. If you're looking to get information about your apps and APIs in the controller, and that's usually we care more about, we can go to the services. And here we have our applications and APIs available. So I'll click on one of them. And what you see over here is the application and API level analytics. So here you are able to see that if your server, if your application is throwing any errors, 400 and the 500 errors, what are the total number of HTTP requests which are passing through this specific application, bytes in, bytes out, and different components under it. Now, if this is something which is quite common, somebody comes and says, your application is slow, and I think it's because of you. If that's the case, you can go to the latency metrics, and it will show you the total latency. Total latency is the latency between your users and the API and the application endpoints, which is basically your servers. Then you have something called the client network latency. This is between the clients, your users, and the Nginx Plus instance. And then you have something called the upstream network latency. So this is between the Nginx Plus and the API and the application endpoint. So if somebody comes and says, it's probably because of your solution or because of what you have configured, it's very easy to find out whether it is true or not. So if the upstream network latency is going up, most probably the issue is with the API or the application endpoint itself, or something which is in between, but not this data plane. If you need more information that, okay, what URLs are slow, that's also quite common question when we talk about troubleshooting the latency problems. We can come to something called critical analytics. You have more detailed graphs here. What you can do here is you can break out this information based on different filters. So here I will choose the HTTP URI, which is basically the path. And here now we'll get the breakout based on different API endpoints or the application URLs. You can see many, and you can, of course, create your own graphs if you wanted to. So here, for example, we are seeing that which URLs are fast, which URLs are slow. If we are seeing certain outlier cases here, we know that this is one specific URI which is giving us a problem, and that's where we need to focus on in terms of troubleshooting that. We do also have the security analytics to ensure that when you have configured the WAF policies on your APIs and your applications, you see the analytics for those in the same analytics section. So here you can see how many requests we have rejected, how many we have flagged. That means we have flagged but not blocked, and quite a few other information. In the interest of time, I think this is where I'll wrap up the demo. But if this is something which is appealing to you, please reach out to us, and we'll be happy to do a more detailed demo with you. Don't go anywhere away. We do still have a quiz and goodies to give away, which we are sure you will enjoy. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alex.
So,
awesome.
Anything from my part you think I need to repeat, or it was good?
No, I think it was fine. Like I said, the only thing is that both of you were on the 20-minute mark. So I think in total we were in 10 minutes over time, plus minus. Give or take a few, but I think that's fine. I mean, it happens in the actual live event. It will always happen. So I don't see it being too much of a problem.
Yeah.
Okay. So 5 minutes me, 5 minutes you, Prashant. Okay. So Zakir will not. Zakir will get upset.
You're 5 minutes. I'm 4 minutes. Should be okay.
Yeah. So thanks, guys. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for doing such an amazing presentation. Yeah, and I'll share the link for the event, and it will be A pleasure to see you on the day of the event as well. Thanks a lot.
Will we get access to the recording, Tushar?
Yes, we can we'll share the recording as well for you to review. So I'll send you two things. One is the link for the recording and the link to join the actual event on the 28th.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Tushar.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Alex, if you have some time,
Yeah,
is
I have.
there somebody by the name Jay Loyola waiting in?
Yes.
Waiting. Okay, cool. So Alex, Jay is going to be the man who's going to be there with you for all the recordings, yeah, for Imagine, yeah. So I just wanted to quickly, touch base with you, both on what are the important things, to keep in mind when we are doing the recordings. See, the recording today was for a Mana event, yeah, which is these are the only presenters. So even if a little over their time, it was okay. But with Imagine, it's a huge lineup that we have of different